King.
Thank you. Since I have 7 minutes, I'm going to do 2 minutes to celebrate innovation and then 5 minutes to go after the cost question. On the innovation side, there's an article that came out in Health Affairs Journal in September of 2020, and I'd like to put it in the record, Contributions of Public Health, Pharmaceuticals, and Other Medical Care to U.S. Life Expectancy Changes, 1990 to 2015. And the article looked at the fact that between 1990 and 2015, life expectancy in the U.S. increased by 3.3 years. And the authors of the researchers and authors of the study were able to say 44% of that increase was because of public health measures. 35% of the increase was attributable to pharmaceutical innovation, and 13% of the increase was attributable to other improvements in medical care, with 7% unknown. But the fact that pharmaceuticals led to nearly more than a third of that increase in life expectancy is something that we need to acknowledge as a context to this discussion. And a Virginia example, Mr. Davis, you'll know this example very well. In Elkton, Virginia, there's a plant that produces Gardasil, which your company developed and began to market in the mid-2000s, 2006, 2007. And it is a vaccine against a virus, the HPV virus, that leads to a lot of cancers, especially cervical cancer and other as well. And that's just been revolutionary in terms of cervical cancer. We were one of the first states to put a vaccine mandate in place for HPV vaccine. And cervical cancer among vaccinated populations has dropped 70+% just in the last 15 years. I mean, it's truly remarkable. And I've been to that plant, and I know how proud people are to work there and believe that they've been at the vanguard of a revolution that has helped so many Americans, but people all around the world. So that's the good side. Okay, now we got to get to the reality for the hearing, which is people here still pay too much out of pocket. Together with my colleagues here who voted for the Inflation Reduction Act, we said for a long time that we ought to be negotiating on prescription drug prices, and we did it. And it passed by only one vote in the Senate. So each of us who voted for it, we were the deciding vote. And I know not everybody likes that, but it's working. We put the out-of-pocket cost cap on seniors under Medicare. We did the $35 insulin for seniors under Medicare. And thank goodness that sent such a strong market signal that many of the companies that were reducing insulin cost to $35 a month said, we'll just do it for not just Medicare patients, but others. And they wouldn't have done that had we not taken that step in the IRA. But there is more that we can do. And I really want to focus on one thing because I think it's just right before us. This committee took strong bipartisan action about 9 months ago on this PBM reform bill that is sitting on the floor of the Senate right now. And I don't expect you to be the masters of all the details of that bill, but if we were to pass a meaningful PBM reform bill, and much of the conversation today has been about this weird difference between list prices and actual net prices, if we were able to pass a meaningful PBM reform bill, what would that do to the cost that American patients are paying out of pocket for pharmaceuticals? Please, and I'll ask each of you to address that. Mr. Duano.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for recognizing the value for patients of pharmaceutical innovation. If we were able to pass meaningful reform, meaning a reform that would delink the revenues of the PBMs and insurance companies from the list price, and that would pass rebates and discounts to the patients, I would anticipate two things. One, it would affect list prices. Two, it would significantly reduce the out-of-pocket cost for the patient. So I welcome the bipartisan efforts of this committee to go through PBM reform. It's a linchpin of lowering the cost for patients.
Mr. Davis.
Yes, I also believe that the provisions that are in the bill, at least some of the big ones around transparency and also delinking, are definitely steps in the right direction. I think we need them. They're a lot of what we've all been focusing on in our testimony and in the question and answers. And I do think it can benefit patients if we move in that direction. So I'm very supportive of what you're trying to do.
Mr. Berner.
Senator, if we could do that and we could reduce the significant amount that we are paying in rebates to intermediaries who are not passing those rebates on to lower out-of-pocket costs, speaking on behalf of Bristol Myers Squibb, we could work almost immediately to begin to bring down list prices, and I would welcome the opportunity to work with this committee to do that.
Well, I know that in conversations with the chair, the intent is to move on that bill pretty soon, potentially with some other health items as well. And I think that the opportunity is right before us. The bill passed out of committee overwhelmingly bipartisan. I think it was an 18-3 vote. And that tells us that we would have some amendment on the floor. The delinking provision was not in the bill. The chair and ranking were supportive of the concept, but at the time we marked it up, the CBO hadn't given us a score. And so we agreed that we would wait on that until we got on the floor. But the CBO has now scored the delinking bill that Senators Marshall, Capito, Braun, and I and Tester have co-sponsored, and the CBO says that it would save about $650 million over 10 years, and that's in addition to the savings for patients. So I know we would try, hopefully on the floor, to add that in. My colleagues have all talked about the reality of what they hear from constituents, and I hear the same thing. And I think the complexity of the system and the fact that list price is different than net price, and the fact that we have rebates, quote, rebates that never show up in people's pockets. And then you have programs to try to assist folks who can't afford medicines, but they have a 6-page application form, and both a sticker price might scare them off or a 6-page application might scare them off. We just have to simplify this and cut out a lot of the middlemen in this instance. I've long said to the chair that I'm very concerned about PBMs, because we might fight with you about whether you're researching enough or should your research be more than your stock buybacks. PBMs aren't doing a single bit of research. They're not producing a single product. And yet they seem to me to be the ones that are scooping up the most of money that's just sloshing through the system right now. So I hope we can address that soon. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Lujan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to everyone who's here today. Biosimilar competition is one way to drive down drug costs for patients and increase access. Would you all agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Now, one of the concerns I have is we often see competition stifled in this particular area with biosimilars. And the concern that I have is tactics and delay that lead to entry of the lower cost biosimilar drugs keep patients from often having a choice, but also being able to afford their prescription drugs. Now, Mr. Davis, yes or no, will you commit to not blocking other drug makers from entering the market when the primary patent on Keytruda expires?
Well, Senator Merck, and we do believe that biosimilar competition and generic competition is core to the system. We need the patent protection, and then we need a robust biosimilar and generic market. And I can tell you that when the composition of matter patents expire on our drug Keytruda, I fully expect, and I will not try to stop, a biosimilar IV version of Keytruda coming onto the marketplace.
Is that a yes?
That's a yes.
I appreciate that. Mr. Berner, yes or no, will you commit to not blocking other drug makers from entering the market when your primary patent on Eliquis expires?
Senator, we have a number of patents on Eliquis, and we have certainly anticipated that when the patents that are most relevant for that product expire, we will have generic competition, in this case not biosimilar, but generic competition, and that would be around 2028.
When the primary patent expires on Eliquis, will you commit to not blocking other drug makers from entering the market?
Senator, I'm not a patent attorney, so I'm not entirely.
You're the CEO.
Senator, I would say that when the most important and most relevant patents expire on Eliquis, we will welcome generic competition.
So is that a yes or a no?
That's a yes, Senator.
Mr. Boehner, I have the same question on Opdivo. Yes or no, will you commit to not blocking other drug makers from entering the market when your primary patent expires?
When the most relevant patents for Opdivo expire, we would fully expect biosimilars to enter the market.
So
yes.
your answer is yes when the words you're using are relevant patents, not the primary patent. Is that a clarification that I can?
Yes, Senator, I'm just not certain exactly what the most, what you're referring to as the primary patent, but when those patents expire, we welcome generic competition.
First patent, primary. the initial one, the one that was filed when you got this drug done. Look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a CEO. I don't work at all. If I'm not using the wrong words, please help me a little bit. You know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, generally it's when the composition of matter patent expires. That
It
is
doesn't
when we
sound
would
like a
welcome.
yes. I hear what you're saying. I'm going to move on. Mr. Duato, we know that J&J entered into settlement agreements to delay the launch of some Stelara biosimilars in 2025. This will prevent competition in the drug market and Medicare negotiation, the way I read it. Will you commit to lowering the price of Stelara in 2025?
Senator, thank you for the question. I anticipate that the price of Stelara will actually be lower in 2025, as it has been lowering during the past decade. The price of Stelara has been steadily declining, the net prices, and I anticipate that the biosimilars in 2025 will further decrease the price of Stelara.
Are you answering yes to my question?
Yes.
I appreciate that. Now, we've heard over and over that Medicare drug pricing negotiations will kill innovation. Mr. Berner, I want to get a few things clear. Yes or no, is it BMS's position, as stated in its lawsuit against the Health and Human Services, that, quote, the IRA's real victim is innovation, and in turn, the millions of patients who are counting on the pharmaceutical industry to develop new therapies will save lives and improve health and well-being?
Senator, we have serious concerns about elements of IRA, specifically the fact that this isn't an actual negotiation. We obviously like some elements of IRA, notably the out-of-pocket costs. But
I appreciate that, but do you stand by this statement that was filed in the lawsuit to the United States Health and Human Services Department?
We have very serious concerns about the implication of IRA.
Do you stand by this statement?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no, is it also true that you said in your Q4 earnings call, quote, we see a legacy portfolio of well-established products facing headwinds such as IRA. Through this portfolio, or though this portfolio is declining, it is expected to continue to generate strong cash flows to enable investment in our future growth drivers. Do you stand by that?
Yes, we actually have a legacy product portfolio that will continue to provide the necessary funds to innovate and bring the next wave of innovation to market. Yes, sir.
So based on that, can I interpret that cash flows were generated even though the IRA went to place and they're sufficient to support new innovations, as was reported to the investors?
Senator, we don't yet have IRA having been fully implemented in negotiation. That process is ongoing. But we are generating cash flows off of our existing products to fund innovation, sir.
The statement in the same filing to Health and Human Services with that case said, this portfolio, though the portfolio is declining, it is expected to continue to generate strong cash flows to enable investment in our future growth drivers. So is it generating cash?
Our legacy portfolio of products is continuing to generate cash. Yes, sir.
So even in the face of IRA, you're generating cash?
Again, Senator, we haven't actually finished negotiation yet on our first drug, which is...
I'll move on. I appreciate that very much. This is one of the... I grew up on a small farm in northern New Mexico. When a cow does its business in the barn, there's a pile of stuff I've got to go clean. That's what it is. It's manure. It has a lot of other languages. But that's what it is. I don't understand why this is so complex. The people in the room make these darn things so complex so no one understands them. I'm beside myself, Mr. Chairman, that when a question was asked, can you break down where the money goes on this particular drug? The answer is, well, it's complicated. We don't know. I'm hoping it's included in the filings for investors, that people know where the money... Well, I'll follow up with more questions. I have several, Mr. Chairman, but y'all help me and other laymen across the country and around the world to be able to understand what the heck is going on. You all have some good lawyers. Maybe one day I'll go to law school and try to get a gig with one of you all. I don't know, but this is just frustrating. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Markey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much. Research is medicine's field of dreams, from which we harvest the findings that give hope to families that a cure can be found for the disease which has been running through their family's history. That's what it's all about. That's what we all hope for. That's what I represent. in Boston, in Kendall Square, 2 miles from my house. And I've been for 47 years in Congress trying to help that industry to be able to grow and to be able to get the resources from NIH, other resources to make the breakthroughs, to give hope to ordinary families. Like my father who drove a truck for the Hood Milk Company. And the companies have done great work over the years, but that funding, which I was on the health committee in the House for 36 and a half years, and I fought very hard for NIH funding, and those NIH dollars delivered results. For example, between 2010 and 2016, every drug approved by the FDA was in some way based on biomedical research funded by the NIH. And my father, the truck driver at the Hood Milk Company, 1 mile from Kendall Square, he paid his taxes to make sure that the funding would go to NIH so that the research could be made in order to make the breakthroughs that would help him and help his families. And Merck's former president, and you've already quoted him, Mr. Davis, he said, "We never try to forget that medicine is for the people." You know, my father. It is not for the profits. And Merck's website states that this philosophy is embraced by their leaders and the employees to this day. So FDA approved the cancer drug Keytruda in 2014 based on NIH research that my father helped to pay for as a truck driver at the Hood Milk Company. And last year, the list price was $191,000 for this cancer drug that helps patients with lung cancer and other cancers. $191,000 a year. And the annual meeting and proxy statement 2023 says that it brought in $21 billion in revenue for the company, and it was driving key growth for Merck's business. And at the same time, patients are also straining under insurance premiums, struggling to afford this drug, taking on debt, or skipping treatments altogether. So Merck has now filed 168 patents on this cancer drug, Keytruda. And as we know from this earlier discussion, you know, when we discuss this, we can be talking about primary patents or secondary patents. And what I heard earlier was that the witnesses in general just want all the secondary patents to also be exhausted. Now, to a very large extent, of course, 168 patents then bring at least 168 lawyers into the room. You know, how do we use this patent in order to thwart another smaller company, hundreds of smaller companies from now making the breakthroughs that advance even further, the breakthroughs. Innovating, discovering. 168 new patents extend further, using lawyers, you know, the time at which there can be a lower price drug made available to people so that they can get the treatment which they need for lung cancer. So, yeah, we believe in competition. And we really believe in competition in Massachusetts. We believe in Darwinian, paranoia-inducing competition. But when there's a monopoly on a drug, which is the key drug, there is no competition. There is no paranoia. If 168 patents just extend and extend the ability to have new companies, smaller companies, smarter, new scientists to make the new additional breakthroughs. And that's the play. We understand the play. That's how lawyers get into it, not scientists. The lawyers keep the smarter, new 25-year-old out with the new insight, just by extending and extending. So I do believe in research. Adam Smith hated monopolies. It was the number one thing he hated the most, monopolies. And so in this particular instance, my father died from lung cancer. And my father drove a truck. So the list price for Keytruda is more than his entire pension. That's what he got from the Hood Milk Company. So 1 year of his entire pension would have paid for 1 year. And he died from lung cancer. And I don't think that George Merck really intended that would be what the result of research ultimately did. So, Mr. Davis, would it have been consistent with George Merck's philosophy to take research funded by my father's tax dollars to invent a life-saving lung cancer drug, charge him hundreds of thousands of dollars of his hard-earned retirement for it, manipulate the market, using patent law to block out competition that could have brought in new scientists that could have improved it and lowered the cost, and as a result, the costs are unaffordable, and then use the income you got from him to brag to your investors about the drug as a key growth area for your business. Do you think that's what George Merck intended when he had that high-minded philosophy, which he used to describe Merck's?
In 17 seconds.
Are you looking for the answer now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I would say the quote was, medicine is for the patients, not for the profits. But so long as we've remembered that, the profits have always followed. And what he was capturing was if you focus on bringing new medicines to benefit patients today and make sure you have an investment and a return to bring medicines for the future, which we are a biopharmaceutical research company. Research is who we are. Innovation is the lifeblood of our company. Then we can deliver for the mission to the patients. And I can tell you at Merck, and I'm very proud of this, we always put patients at the center. And we always look at ways to do that. And that will continue to be what we do. So I do think actually what we're doing is consistent because it allows us to be sustainable for the long term, to deliver for patients into the future.
I just
Thank you very
I just think it's turned into medicine for the shareholders and not medicine for the people like my father.
That's the last line of questioning. So let me thank our three panelists for being here today and all the senators who participated. We're now going to turn to our second panel. Thank you all very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.